In the middle of the glamorous New York, on a banquet table covered with a white tablecloth, bright red crab claws, as big as human arms, are solemnly displayed next to glasses of bubbly champagne.
Hold on.
King crab, the ultimate symbol of luxury, is about to be enjoyed as the throne of world cuisine. What could cause the red gold of the ocean to collapse after just one embargo? How did the Russia-Ukraine war wipe out a seafood industry that once fed thousands of families and satisfied the global elite? And the bigger question, is this just a story about one crab, or a wake-up call for the fragility of the entire global supply chain? Go discover King crab collapse. America's $1 billion vanishes after the Russia-Ukraine war. King crab is truly worthy of its title, with a leg span of nearly 6.5 feet and a weight of over 20 pounds. Its spiked armor and fiery red color when cooked make it a delicacy. They live in harsh, cold waters such as the Bering Sea, Alaska, and the Russian Far East, where icebergs, huge waves, and fierce winds leave only the strongest individuals alive. It is these harsh conditions that create firm, sweet, and rich meat that is coveted by diners worldwide. Fishermen have been harvesting king crab since the 1960s, but it wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s, thanks to reality TV and the wave of high-end cuisine, that this crab really reigned. Today, king crab appears in Japanese restaurants, lavish Korean buffets, or high-class American parties. A plate of king crab costs hundreds of dollars. Not only is it a premium dish, but also a symbol of luxury and class. Behind every luxurious plate of king crab in a gilded restaurant is a silent tragedy in the middle of the cold ocean, where sweat, blood, and human will blend with the waves. The Bering Sea, the most inhospitable body of water on the planet, located between Alaska and Russia, is famous not only for its huge seafood output, but also for its biting cold, bone-chilling winds and waves as high as 3-story buildings. There, where the line between life and death is measured in seconds, king crab fishermen still quietly set sail every winter, when most of the world is still sleeping in warm blankets.
Thanks for work,
Here's a nice one. Whoa. Yeah. Hold on.
The morning sky in Dutch Harbor was filled with leaden clouds. Red and blue steel ships lined up, cranes turning, engines roaring, steel clanging against steel. The crews, mostly seasoned men, their skin tanned by the wind and their eyes squinting against the ice, were preparing for a voyage that would last weeks. They checked every cable, every iron cage weighing hundreds of pounds. The crab pots that would be lowered to the bottom of the sea, nearly 984 feet deep. Each pot was like a giant metal bomb, filled with rotten fish, bait, and hope. As the ship left the dock, the sea instantly turned into a violent creature. The wind howled, the waves threw up white foam. The hull of the ship tilted like a toy in the silver ocean. There was no room for fear. Everyone knew just a small mistake. They could be swept off the deck, disappearing forever in the cold, cutting water. Fishermen work continuously in harsh conditions, minus 20 degrees Celsius, force 9 wind, slippery deck, like ice. They have to pull, push, tie, and drop dozens of iron cages into the deep sea. Each cage is so heavy that a crane is needed to move it. When the cable is stretched, the sound of metal screeches through the air like the roar of wild animals. They waited, hours, even all night, in the bitter cold, clinging to everything to keep from being thrown out. Then the moment came. The iron cage rose from the silvery gray water, heavy, iron hitting steel, water splashing. All eyes were on it, for inside could be a fortune or just rocks and seaweed.
Yeah, this is going to be fun for about 5 minutes.
Giant king crabs, with legs nearly 2 meters long, thrashed violently. They were the kings of the sea, the spoils that fishermen traded with their lives. In the dim light of the polar twilight, the red claws flapped violently, spraying water like rain. But no one was allowed to let their guard down. Just one slip or a mistimed collision, and the multi-ton cable could knock anyone off their feet or drag them straight into the cold abyss. On deck, everything was a cacophony of chaos. The howling wind, the roaring waves, the clanging of metal, the captain's shouts of orders echoed through the blizzard. But amidst the chaos, each fisherman acted like a precision machine, experience forged by years, by injuries, and by fear. According to the U.S. Bureau of Occupational Safety and Health, king crab fishing is among the most dangerous occupations in the world, with a fatality rate of 100% rate dozens of times higher than average. Some people go to sea and never return, swept away by waves, entangled in ropes, or simply lost in storms. But for others, it's not just a job, it's destiny. Once the cages are pulled up, the crabs are sorted on deck in sub-zero temperatures. Only those that meet the standard size are kept. The rest are released back into the sea. Each crab that meets the standard is a golden ticket, heavy, meaty, and soon to be appearing in high-end restaurants from Seattle to Tokyo, Seoul to New York. To preserve the flavor, the crabs are frozen on board the ship, then packed in refrigerated containers, traveling thousands of kilometers of ocean, passing through ports, cold storage, and the world's most stringent distribution chains. And then, when a portion of king crab is placed on the table, costing several $100s, under crystal lights and glasses of champagne, few people can imagine that behind that shiny red shell is a fierce survival story. It is a battle between man and nature, between courage and the price to pay, between living and disappearing at the bottom of the icy ocean. Therefore, king crab is not just a luxury dish. It is a symbol of resilience, sacrifice, and survival. Each claw lifted at the party is a silent tribute to the Alaskan fishermen, the warriors of the sea, who have turned the cold ocean into a legend. In that supply chain, Russia plays a dominant role. With thousands of kilometers of coastline and vast cold waters, Russia accounts for more than 65% of the global supply of king crab. Major ports such as Murmansk in the north and Vladivostok in the far east have become king crab export centers. Millions of pounds of crab are shipped around the world, with the United States being the largest market. In 2021, the U.S. imported more than 44 million pounds of king crab from Russia, worth nearly $1.2 billion. This figure shows the huge dependence of the U.S. market on Russian supplies. While Alaska also has king crab, production is decreasing due to environmental changes and strict fishing quotas. Therefore, Russia almost holds the key to determining global prices and supplies. In February 2022, when Russia launched a military campaign in Ukraine, the world was shocked. Economic sanctions from the West were quickly issued. In particular, the U.S. announced a ban on seafood imports from Russia. This decision instantly blew up the entire king crab supply chain. Containers en route were turned away from ports, and commercial contracts worth tens of millions of dollars were canceled. A $1.2 billion industry in the U.S. collapsed in just a few weeks. American restaurants were shocked. An iconic dish suddenly disappeared. Customers could no longer order king crab, and the high-end menu had to change. Many import and distribution businesses were on the brink of bankruptcy. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, markets like China and South Korea have accelerated imports of cheaper Russian king crab, offsetting the decline from the U.S. For the United States, this ban is not only a political issue, but also an economic shock. The high-end restaurant industry loses a trump card to attract customers. king crab prices doubled, but there was still not enough supply. Consumers switched to other options like lobster or snow crab. But for many diners, the taste of king crab is irreplaceable. Meanwhile, the already weakened king crab industry in Alaska has been in even more trouble. Surveys show that the Bering Sea crab population has dropped to a record low. Fishing quotas have been cut, and many seasons have been canceled. Alaskan fishermen have no source of income, while the U.S. market is still hungry for crab. If America is the loser in this game, the winners are clear. Russia is quickly pivoting to China and Japan. In Guangzhou, seafood markets are bustling with glass tanks filled with live king crab. Shoppers are jostling and prices are much cheaper than before. In Tokyo, high-end sushi restaurants still serve king crab as if nothing had changed. Russia not only maintains but also strengthens new trade relations. Instead of the United States, China has now become the most important customer. The king crab story is just a small slice of the larger picture. Global supply chains are more fragile than ever. Not only king crab, but also oil, gas, wheat, and fertilizer are affected by war and sanctions. When one link breaks, a series of other industries follow. A luxury dish at an American restaurant may seem unrelated to a war thousands of miles away, but in fact, it is a vivid illustration of how interconnected our world is. When an American diner enjoys king crab, few people think that the dish is linked to the fate of Russian fishermen, to U.S. import policy, or to political upheaval in Europe. A crab claw on the dinner table is actually the result of a long chain, from fishermen struggling with rough seas to exporters transporting goods across the ocean, and finally to political decisions in a boardroom in Washington. At the bottom of the icy sea, king crabs move silently, unaware that they have become symbols of a global crisis. They were once the king of crabs, dominating both the ocean and the luxurious banquet table. But that throne has now been shaken, leaving a painful question. In this fragile world, how many other thrones can collapse overnight? If you want to continue discovering the secrets hidden beneath the waves, subscribe to Go Discover. The next journey will surprise you even more.